Hey everyone, this is Mario again, coming at you with another review. Tonight's review is of a 1968 film which is influential in that it basically started a whole genre, or should I say subgenre of horror, that is the zombie films. Because before this movie, I can't really think of scores of zombie movies. I mean, there was like a couple, maybe like White Zombie, I think that involves zombies, and maybe a few others, but after this movie, the zombie subgenre got kicked up. And even if you don't like the movie, you gotta respect it at least for that. And of course is George A. Romero's film Night of the Living Dead. Now, the thing with this movie is that it originally had other titles. Like originally it was written as a horror comedy under the title Monster Flick, which in retrospect that sounds like a name of that sounds like a movie that those guys who kept making epic movies and stuff would have done, which I'm glad they haven't done a movie about that. It'd probably suck. And an early screenplay idea concerned exploits of teenage aliens who visit Earth and befriend human teenagers. That actually sounds like it would be a fun film in and of itself if you think about it. Yeah, teenage greasers from outer space. You have to admit that sounds like a fun movie. That'd be kind of a fun 80s throwback film. The second version of the script featured a young man who runs away from home and discovers rotting human corpses that aliens use for food scattered across a meadow. That also sounds like it'd be an interesting film. And then, of course, the final one, which was written by Romero during 3 days, was the one that we got, focusing on reanimated human corpses, which he called ghouls that consume human flesh. And then, of course, apparently in a 1997 BBC interview, he explained that the script he developed into a 3-part story. The first part became Night of the Living Dead, the second became Dawn of the Dead, and the third became Day of the Dead, which hopefully you'll be able to watch the third one during this thing, because by this point you've already seen I've reviewed the second one. And this is something that, even though I haven't read the book from what I know of it, I can see now, is that he drew inspiration from Richard Matheson's I Am Legend, which is a horror sci-fi novel about a plague that ravages a futuristic Los Angeles, and people became vampire-like creatures that prey on the uninfected. And of course, you all know that this novel, was adapted into 3 films. First of all, we got the 64 movie, The Last Man on Earth, starring Vincent Price. The 1971 film, The Omega Man, starring Charlton Heston. And of course, the 2007 film, I Am Legend, starring Will Smith. Am I the only one that notices ironic all 3 film versions? Not only the fact that none of them fully follow the story of the novel, but all of them have great, talented actors as their leads. Just a thought. And of course, Matheson, while he wasn't really impressed with the movie at first, apparently later on he didn't harbor any animosity towards Romero and stuff. And some people might have called it a ripoff at first, but while it does take the same central premise, it basically turns it into a different direction, so you can't really call it a ripoff. And of course, most of the principal photography was around the Pennsylvania-Pittsburgh area, which if I ever was in that area, I'd actually like to go visit the cemetery, take footage and stuff. And of course, the film was made on a very low budget. According to Wikipedia, $114,000, which that by today's standards would be lower, but back then that would probably be like a small amount of money, but still a low budget. I mean, the blood was chocolate syrup and basically just primitive makeup effects, but primitive yet effective, and the black and white film only adds to it. And of course, it's made over $42 million according to Wikipedia, but it's probably made more than that with all the re-releases and DVDs. And another thing is that this film is actually in the public domain. Now, how that happened is that at first, when it was called Night of the Flesh Eaters, they had the copyright thing, but when they changed it to Night of the Living Dead, the distributor removed the statement when they changed the title and forgot to put it back in, adding to all the re-releases and stuff, and it eventually fell out of it because of the copyright law at the time that you must do it. And because of this, so many people have released it, and it's also on various sites. Like, I looked it up before I did this review, and there's a couple of times it's uploaded on YouTube, so if you want to watch this movie, just type it on YouTube and watch it. But if you want to get it, According to Wikipedia, at least, there's 51 different versions of the VHS on Amazon, 168 versions of the DVD, and 6 Blu-rays. I already have the DVD. I already have the VHS, and I already have an AVI of it, so I no longer need this. And this is one AVI I can flaunt in the government's face. Because it's in the public domain. I could put this I could watch it. I could actually do a commentary without having any worries, but, well, I don't know. Maybe one day, but anyway, it's 5 minutes in and I haven't even talked about the plot, but I've given you a loose backstory. Now, the plot of the movie is that we got siblings Barbara, played by Judith O'Day, and Johnny, played by Russell Strainer, driving to a rural Pennsylvania cemetery to visit their father's grave. In the graveyard, Johnny teases his sister that they're coming to get you, Barbara, imitating Boris Karloff, which, of course, even if you've never seen the movie, you know that scene from Halloween 2. Stop it! You're acting like it! Stop it! You're ignorant! They're coming for you, Barbara! Stop it! You're acting like a child. They're coming for you. Look! There comes one of them now. And of course, that one happens to be a zombie. He attacks them, kills Johnny, and chases Barbara, and eventually she ends up in a farmhouse. There she meets a black male named Ben, played by Duane Jones. He arrives by car, and of course, by this point, Barbara's gone into shock. And she basically is like that throughout the rest of the movie, offering little bits here and there, but basically just being comatose. In the farmhouse, they find a married couple, Harry and Helen Cooper, and their daughter, Karen, who sought refuge after a group of zombies attacked their car, and teenage couple, Tom and Judy, who arrived after hearing an emergency broadcast about a series of brutal murders. And of course, here, they basically have to survive the onslaught of the zombies while also dealing with each other, which that's basically the central premise of the movie, is that they're struggling to not only survive from the outside attack, but from the attack in within. It's mostly a clash between Ben and Harry, and that's basically just where the drama of the movie comes in, from their clashing and the zombies attacking. And of course them trying to figure out what the heck is going on by either watching TV or listening to the radio, and that's basically the movie. Now, also, this movie does have a downbeat ending, but it does not bug me. Because it's just one of those downbeat endings where I saw it and I'm like, that's interesting. It doesn't really bug me. And I think that's because of the unintended social commentary of the movie, which I will address in a little bit. Now, the acting, it's not Oscar caliber, but it's not bad either. It's passable, I guess. And from Judith O'Day and Duane Jones, that's to be expected. I mean, they were stage actors, so they really did at least study acting to an extent. And of course, Duane Jones' casting as Ben actually was kind of extraordinary for the time period. It's the late 60s. You never really saw African-American lead actors in a movie with a predominantly white cast, so it was kind of groundbreaking in a way. And also the way the character's written, he could have been any race. Actually, he could have been a Navi, or he could have been Papa Smurf, and it wouldn't have mattered. But the fact that at the time period it is Duane Jones playing the role, it adds something to it. And also that's where you could actually read a little bit into the ending, which I will address in a little bit. And I actually do like that he takes charge. And apparently I found out that originally the character was supposed to be like lower class, you know, like blue collar, like get her done, like that. But then Duane Jones, as being an edge type guy, talked the director into doing it. And that's what I have to say, that sometimes as an actor, if you can tell the director an idea that's actually better than their idea, the director should go with it. He shouldn't like, no, my idea's the way I am the director. I decide everything that goes on. I have the camera. I don't know what I was trying to do. I don't know what I made him sound like, but you get the point. Judith O'Day, even though she's basically a comatose, slightly crazy character throughout the movie, I have to say she does do a pretty good job at it. It's believable. Of course, Karl Hardman as Harry Cooper. I think you guys know what phrase I'm going to use to sum him up. And the immortal words of Alexander Knox, what a dick. I mean, he basically is trying to run the whole thing. Also, because of Duane Jones' casting, you can also read a subtle racist undertone into it. That, granted, it's not written in the script, but basically from how the characters are, we the audience can interpret that maybe Harry is a racist, and that's the reason why he's trying to take charge, because anything he feels that Ben, is giving out is going to be stupid, because it's an ignorant black guy. He doesn't know jack shit. You know, get it? And of course, his wife Helen basically butts heads a little bit with him. Then of course, Tom and Judy, teenagers trying to decide which one sounds better for them. Then of course, Karen being in the bottom all, but she actually is part of why this film would have been shocking for the time, you know, kid zombie. Now, the social commentary of the movie, now that is not only from how the people are butting heads, you know, a social thing of a society crumbling within itself, because that's actually kind of true. I mean, a lot of things are pointed out. This is one thing that kind of does, even though it's unintentional. But George Carlin put it the best, that all it would take is just one thing, one crucial thing to happen, and society would crumble in on itself. You know, his example was eliminate electricity, and how he put it actually could happen. And of course, I believe I've already mentioned this in my Dawn of the Dead review, so I'm not going to reiterate anymore, but it's basically there. And of course, the whole race thing is thrown in there too unintentionally at the end, in the fact that this is a minor spoiler alert though, but Ben dies. Yeah, Ben dies. Granted, most people who are watching this have already seen this movie or know that, but Ben dies. If you didn't, and I spoiled it for you, sorry, but he dies. I have to mention that at least. That's one spoiler I have to give away in order to talk about this. Now, the thing is, I paid close attention to it, and it's, from what I remember, it's kind of hard to tell how good they actually see Ben in the window. They could tell he's actually a zombie. It's hard to tell if they could see he's actually a zombie or they're just not taking a chance. But on the off chance that they don't think he's a zombie, they killed him for no reason. It's up to the audience to determine. And like, if you determine that they're racist SOBs who just took a chance to legally shoot a black guy and get away with it, that's what you interpret it as. Me, I don't know whether I interpreted it that or not, but the fact that the guy, I know this is going to be kind of a little bit of stereotypical, but the fact that the guy has a slightly southern accent doesn't really help him that much. I know someone's going to say, what? Well, think of it. Late 60s southern guy. I know not all of them are racist. I mean, my grandmother, her family comes from down there, and not they were, my part of that, and my mom's side of the family is not racist, but on the whole, the people down there are like that. And of course, the states are kind of a little, you know, well, we're not gonna when it comes to things like evolution. So I know a different topic, but you know, it doesn't really add to the favor of anything. Also, the special effects, I think I mentioned this, while primitive, they are effective. Nothing as good as, let's say, the next couple movies, or from what I've heard, the remake, or, you know, more modern zombie movies. But for the budget it had, and also the year it came out in, it was pretty good. And while I'm on that, the flesh-eating sequences, even though it's just with ham and stuff, it's very effective, especially since it's shot in black and white. And for the time, I can imagine just sitting in an audience in '68 and being like, ooh! I know that this was before they really did the ratings board, and because of that, a lot of kids saw it. Like, that's part of the controversy of the film from when it came out, is that they didn't have ratings. And Ebert even mentioned that as he was sitting in the theater, he noticed some 9-year-old kids just sitting in their seats crying. And of course, he doesn't really comment on the film itself. He's just commenting a little bit on it, like the tragic ending and how a kid must have been feeling to see that at the time period. So I can imagine that. And of course, one person even called this movie the pornography of violence. And you guys already know that some people have called that other films that phrase before. And whenever I hear that, I just shake my head, especially since it's labeled at films that do not deserve to be called the pornography of violence. And of course, that was only a minor thing now, because this movie is considered influential, and it's one of those films in that list that's, you know, for cultural significance or something. I think it's the Library of Congress, that's what it is, the Library of Congress list. But this film is nowhere near the pornography of violence. If anything is the pornography of violence, it'd be a Serbian film. Baby rape, that's all I'm saying. Anyway, my rating for Night of the Living Dead, I'd have to say Honestly, 4 out of 5. I mean, it's a good film, but is it one I constantly rewatch? No. It's one I can watch once in a while. I mean, it's not a perfect film. I mean, the low budget is both a positive and a negative, because it makes you wonder what they could have done with a little bit more money, but it's still effective. And I know that there's an extended version, which I did see the beginning of in Cinema's Literature. That's kind of the reason I owned the VHS, because I was gone for a week, so I bought the movie just to be able to watch it and do the critique, so it doesn't bother me.